Welcome back to our Microsoft Flight Simulator A to Z series. Today it's time for the letter I from India for the pilot's best friend in bad weather, the ILS. Let's decode the beams and get you on the ground safely. An ILS isn't just one beam, it's a partnership between two radio signals. Think of it as a radio tunnel leading you to the tarmac. First, the localizer. This antenna sits at the far end of the runway and handles your left to right guidance. But it doesn't just send one signal, it sends two overlapping lobes. Look at this diagram. On the left, the antenna broadcasts a 90 Hz signal, on the right a 150 Hz signal. Your aircraft's receiver is constantly comparing the strength of these two. If you drift into the 150 Hz on the right, as you can see in the diagram, the needle on your dash will physically pull to the left, toward the 90 Hz side. This is why we say fly toward the needle. The center is the equisignal zone, where both frequencies are perfectly balanced. Then we have the glide slope. This works exactly the same way, but vertically, guiding you down a 3 degrees slope. One golden rule: intercept from below. If you try to catch it from above, you might hit a false glide slope, a radio reflection at a much steeper angle that could send you into a dangerous dive. But you can't see radio waves. To fly this, you look at the primary flight display. In the fourth quadrant, you see these magneto diamonds. These are your guideposts. If the diamond moves, the beam has moved and you need to follow it. Initially, the diamonds are on the edges. The system is armed, we are searching for the signal. After that, the diamonds will start to move toward the center and turn solid. This is the capture. The autopilot is now actively fighting to stay on path. And in the last frame you see that we are hitting the bullseye. Both diamonds are centered, we are perfectly on the center line and on the 3rd degree slope. Before we ever touch the autopilot, we have to brief the approach. But first we need to know what kind of contract we are signing with the airport. This is where ILS categories come in. These determine how long you can go before you have to see the runway. Category 1, the standard. This is what you'll fly 90% of the time in the sim. It has a decision height, DH, of 200 feet. If you don't see the lights by then, you're going around. You typically need about 2,400 feet of visibility to even attempt this. Category 2, the intermediate. Things are getting tighter here. The decision height drops to 100 feet. This requires a special aircrew certification and extra lighting on the runway. It's for those days when the fog is hugging the ground. Then category 3. The zero visibility kings. This is where the magic happens. Category 3 is subdivided into A, B and C. Category 3 A and B allow for a decision height as low as 0 to 50 feet. This is where you use Autoland. The plane flies the approach, flares and touches down automatically. Category 3C is the holy grail. Zero visibility, zero ceiling. The plane handles everything until you're at a full stop. As a category number goes up, the requirements for the pilot to see the ground go down. But remember, to fly a CAT III, both the airport and your airplane must be equipped for it. You can't Autoland at Cessna 172 just because the runway says CAT III. Now that we know our category, let's find out our specific numbers on the approach plate, the pilot's map. Depending on your region or subscription, your cards will look differently. FAA for the US, Jeppesen for most global airlines, or LIDO for European carriers, but they all contain the same DNA. Here you see an example of a Jeppesen chart. There's a lot of information on this chart, so let's walk to it step by step. On the top, also known as the briefing strip, you can find a lot of interesting information, such as the categories for the ILS. You can see the radio frequencies for the approach, tower and the ground. You will find out the frequency which you need for the ILS approach, as well as the final approach course. Besides that, there's the D class, which is the most important point of the approach, because at that specific nav height you need to be at 1900 feet to make sure that you can descend with that 3 degree angle. Besides that, there is some information about the missed approaches, of course, Also super interesting to understand. And if you want to know how you can fly those missed approaches, have a look at my channel because I've got a specific video about that. Then if we go down, we can see the plan view, right? This is the bird view of how you're gonna approach the runway. It contains all the nav aids, including also restrictions, including the directions which you need to fly, as well as the information such as the final approach course, as well as the localizer radio frequency. So they're both shown on the top, but also on the map. Then if we look below the map, we can see the profile view, the side view. Look for the Thunderbolt. Look for the lightning bolt signal. Look for the lightning bolt symbol. This is our intercept altitude. We need to be at that specific altitude to catch the glide slope from underneath. Below the profile view, we see some other interesting information. What do we see there? Well, we see the ground speed and the descent table. Right in the bottom left, the Jeppesen provides a cheat sheet to help you maintain the correct descent rate 3-degree slope based on your ground speed. If your ground speed is 140 knots, you need a vertical speed of 743 feet per minute to stay on the path. If you are slower, let's say 100 knots, you only need 531 feet per minute. Next to the cheat sheet, there are a lot of icons and a lot of information. Let's start with the first one, the ALSF number 2. This indicates that the runway is equipped with a high-intensity approach lighting system with sequenced flashing lights, category number 2. It's the complex grid of lights you see leading up to a runway to help pilot transitions from instruments to visual flying in low visibility. Then of course we've got PAPI. This stands for Precision Approach Path Indicator. These are the 4 lights next to the runway that turn red or white to tell the pilot if they are too high, too low, or on the glide path. Next to that are the missed approach instructions. If the pilot cannot see the runway at the decision altitude, they must execute a missed approach. These boxes provide the visual shorthand for that procedure. 900 with the up arrow, climb straight ahead to an altitude of 900 feet. On 165 heading, while climbing or after reaching the initial altitude, depending on specific chart notes, maintain a heading of 165 degrees. Then we've got the KSEA 116.8 or 161. Once those conditions are met, navigate to Seattle, the 4, frequency 116.8, and track outbound on the 161 radial. Next to that item we find the holding point. In this case it's TAPNI. This is the name of the initial approach fix, the IF, or holding waypoint. The pilot will fly to this specific geographic point and likely enter a holding pattern, flying in an oval, remember the racetrack, until they receive further instructions from air traffic control. Then at the bottom you also see some terps, which tell you something what is allowed vs what's not allowed. In this case you can see that the use of auto allowed or the HUD to touchdown is allowed in this specific runway. Pretty interesting information for you to know. Now let's have a look at the LIDO chart. This is the LIDO chart for Amsterdam Airport, also known as Schiphol Airport, and it contains also a lot of interesting information. First on the top you will see the airport, of course, the runway, as well as the primary nav aid. The instrument landing system frequency in this case is 110.55 MHz with the identifier Kilo Alpha Golf. Then we've got the bird's eye view. This is the map of the airspace around the airport. It contains transition points, major entry points like Schuylkill, Airtip and River, indicated by the IAF tags, show when the approach begins. Then we've got the path, the thick black line, which is the final approach track. You can see the course is 56 degrees. Then we've got some waypoints like AM609 and AM616. Those are the GPS waypoints used to step the aircraft down in altitude. And of course we've got a holding pattern, the racetrack shape over Spijkerboor. It's a holding pattern, the waiting room in the sky. Below that we've got the profile view, also known as the side view. The middle section shows the descent slope from the slide. Glide path, GP, the angle of the descent is set at 3 degrees. Altitude steps, it shows the aircraft is crossing AM 609 at 2000 feet and AM 616 at 1310 feet. Then we've got the threshold. The 0 marker indicates the runway threshold, not the elevation. 0 minus 11 feet, Schiphol is below sea level. Then we of course also have the minimums, the go, no-go table. This is the most critical part for a pilot. It tells them how low they can go before they must see the runway or abort, go round. CAT III Autoland, these represent the different levels of aircraft and pilot certification. DH or DA stands for decision height. For category 1 approach, the minimum height is 190 feet above the ground. RVR, which stands for Runway Visual Range. For CAT 1, the pilot needs at least 550 meters of visibility to land. And then we've got LOC DME. This is the fallback, localizer only approach if the vertical guidance, the glide slope, fails. The minimums here are higher, 410 feet. Then of course we've got the missed approach. If the pilot can't see the runway at the minimums, they follow the instructions in the blue dashed arrows. Climb on course 56 degrees to 2000 feet. Now we looked at the theoretical part, let's look at how this works in the A320 V2. Here you can see that we're close to that last, let's say, nav 8. In this case D class, where we need to be at 1900 feet. So make sure that you're at 1900 feet, because else you will miss the glide slope. As you can see, we're already at 1900 feet. And what we can do now is we can activate the approach mode and also activate the second autopilot, because we want to use the Autoland. As soon as you activate the approach mode, the localizer will switch on, as well as it will try to capture the glide slope, but that will take some time. I switch on the autopilot, I will do the gears down, and will make sure that everything is correct. And as you can see, it already captured the glide slope, or no, not yet. Well, we're close to it. And that's being caused by this fact, right? If you look at the diamonds, the diamond on the vertical axis is not yet in the center. As soon as it hits the center, you will see that the autopilot takes over and will take that 3-degree decrease of altitude. You can also see that the glide slope has been enabled and the aircraft will automatically start descending. Let me try to see it another way. Always hard with these shortcuts, which are not always working nicely, but here you can see it. Both the glide slope is there, as well as the localizer. So everything is good. One tip, don't change the flaps anymore, because if you change the flaps, it will have an impact on the aircraft. I'm gonna change the brakes, set them to medium. And then hopefully we can land successfully, because I recorded this video already so many times, because some people simply don't follow the, guardrails or the instructions from ATC and then simply driving on the runway. It happened to me already too much. You can see that currently the diamonds are still in the center, which means we're good. You can see that the autopilots both are enabled, which means dual mode. And now let's see if we can land. Right, I don't need to do anything. The only thing I need to do is make sure that I'm, reducing thrust as soon as possible, because you can see here we've got someone who again drives over the runway, which is, kind of a challenge for us. In the meantime, you can see that the puppy lights are not entirely red, white, but in this case, it will figure it out itself. And you can see that the stuttering still there, even in sim update number 5. So let's see how this works out. And there we are, here we do, touchdown. And now we'll land it using the auto land option. So I'm gonna decrease the thrust, right, set it in reverse mode. So we hopefully can decrease speed enough so that we don't, drive into these aircrafts. But I do have a good faith in this, and likely it will work. So here ends this demo about how to use the ILS mode in the A320 V2. Now before you go, here is the pro trivia. The donkey logic. The needles are like a carrot. If the needle is high, fly up. If it's left, fly left. Always fly toward the needle. The categories: CAT 1 is for humans, CAT 3 is for Autoland, where the plane lands itself in zero visibility. Sensitive needles. The closer you get, the thinner the beams get. Be extremely gentle on the controls in those last 500 feet. And this is the ILS. Practice this in the landing challenges to really hone your skills. If this helped, hit that like button. Hope to see you back next week, where we are already arrived at the letter G. Keep an eye on my channel because I will post a survey or questionnaire to let you choose which topic we're gonna discuss then. Until next time.